Jimmy Butler, he's a very interesting player to me.
Just goes to show the offense for the Dallas Stars could not keep up. And when the defense needed to step up, the Lightning's offense just overpowered them.
It makes it almost impossible for their bats to get going or have any confidence in the locker room when you're getting absolutely hosed on the defensive end.
He's like, oh shoot, I don't know where to go with the ball because I haven't been able to think.
It's their defense, man. Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt.
You saw Luka. I'm very intrigued to see how Luka bounces back after his first playoff series.
For next season, there are massive free agents like Giannis. And if Giannis goes to a team like the Heat, like I said before, I expect them to win the championship. 4 teams who could win the AFC in my mind, legitimately. Steelers, Chiefs, Titans, Ravens.
Stay undefeated when they face the mighty Cowboys with Garrett Gilbert and Tony Pollard.
It was a great series. Game 4 was one of the best games I've ever watched in my entire life.
So happy when the Astros lost because it would definitely be a 2020 thing to have the Astros win a World Series and then you have to hear them.
Now LeBron's a 4-time champion and Anthony Davis gets his first.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah, I was impressed by their game. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Nikita Kucherov, that was the best line in the playoffs, no doubt.
I think you have 2 established number 1 wide receivers in Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, and I think you have an emerging star in C.D. Lamb.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared Sandler, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week for September 26th. Let's just get right into it, Austin. The Rams and Bucks. Very surprising win for the Rams, and the Bucks have made adjustments to their secondary by signing Richard Sherman. So we can also talk about that. That's a huge thing because Richard Sherman is a good corner, and he just gives them depth. I'm not too worried, though, about the Bucks in the sense losing to the Rams because of their secondary. It did look bad, but that's because a lot of them have injuries, but they should be fine for the postseason. What do you think?
Yeah. I think the most surprising thing about this game, like you said, was the secondary for the Bucks. I thought it would perform better than it did. There were some things that happened during the game. The Deshaun Jackson catch really catches my eye. Did you see how open he was on that play? He was so open. Do you want to say
I'm
something?
not sure if I was there for that, but I saw how just fast he was, and so I will look that up right now. But
He makes a move, and he has the entire half of the field to himself. I'll put it that way. I watched the game while I was on a plane flying back to campus. So, yeah, it was an interesting game to watch. Obviously, Rob Gronkowski left the game with a injury, which you never really like to see, but he will be back for the game, the much anticipated game in Foxborough. But the Rams, very impressive. We already knew they had a good defense with Ramsey, obviously Aaron Donald, the reigning defensive player of the year. But Matthew Stafford looks like he is very comfortable despite this being his first year in a new system.
And you hear on the Manning cast, they had Matthew Stafford on, and he said it's basically a whole new playbook. There aren't many plays carried over from Detroit, which makes it even that more spectacular.
I can imagine. Sean McVay is very different than the Matt Patricia-led Lions. And they also, Sean McVay has different plays than I think anybody else in the league. I don't think anyone else in the league has some of the plays that the Rams do. I would hold the same sentiment for Kansas City. I feel like there's some Kansas City plays that we haven't seen any other team attempt to try. And that's really just because of the offensive geniuses that run those offenses. So I'm not really surprised. But Matthew Stafford's a smart guy and a quick learner, and we can tell because of the 3-0 record against some pretty good opponents.
Yeah, that's very true. I think we can now move on to the injuries. You mentioned Gronk. Who else got injured? Oh, Quentin Nelson got hurt. He got cut off the field. Who else am I missing?
I mean, there's a good bit of the smaller guys. Obviously, Raheem Mostert was injured last week or the week before that. He'll be out for an extended period of time. Uh, Kendall Hinton, I don't know if you remember who that was. He was the guy who started that spot start for the Broncos when every QB was hurt.
Yeah, that's who it is.
He tore his ACL. He'll be out for the year. There's a lot of guys.
KJ Hamler.
Oh wow, another wide receiver for the Broncos injured. So yeah, oh that's right, Hamler and Hinton, two wide receivers for the Broncos, and that hurts a team that's 3-0. Bridgewater needs all of his targets available, and all those guys are making impact. Another thing I want to talk about is the C.J. Henderson trade. C.J. Henderson goes from Jacksonville. He was a first-round corner selected in 2020. Now goes to the Panthers. The Panthers send Dan Arnold in a third round. No, yeah, Dan Arnold in the third round pick goes to Jacksonville. C.J. Henderson in the fifth round pick goes to Panthers. Who wins the trade? I think the Panthers win the trade. They get a young corner to pair right next to their already young corner, and they obviously have a great safety in Jeremy Chin. Oh, that corner, what's his name? J.C. Horn. J.C. Horn's also hurt.
Yeah, J.C.
Yeah,
Horn.
he's hurt too.
Who's the other corner you were thinking? Oh, he's injured?
I was thinking about the safety. The safety's Jeremy Chin. There's
I
the
know
corner,
Jeremy Chin.
C.J. Henderson, who just got traded to the Panthers, and the other young corner, J.C. Horn. You compare two young corners right next to each other, and then you have a young Jeremy Chin who almost won Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. The defense for the Panthers is getting scary, and when you have a good defense paired with an offensive head coach and a Christian McCaffrey-led offense when he's healthy, there's a lot of things that could be scary about this Panthers team as a whole.
Yeah, that's a very young defense because last year's whole draft class was defense. Like they had defensive linemen, and then they continued with J.C. Horn until they selected Terrence Marshall Jr.
The wide receiver.
The wide receiver from LSU who's repaired with Joe Brady.
Yep.
Joe Brady, who's a great offensive coordinator, and he was the offense coordinator for that spectacular LSU offense. So I definitely agree. I think the Panthers win that trade, especially just given the framework they have. And if he's a 2020 pick, I'm surprised the Jacksonville Jaguars are bailing on him, and they just do not have a good framework, which is something Matt Rule has done well wherever he's been. What else you got to say?
Yeah, so I think the main reason why they traded him is because they have other good young corners that are coming back, but also Urban Meyer didn't take him, so maybe Urban Meyer's like, I don't like this guy, even though they wasted I'm not going to say wasted, they used a first-round pick on him last year, and now they're getting Dan Arnold, who's a quality tight end. He's a good pass-catching tight end, but he isn't what C.J. Henderson could be for the Panthers, and the fact that they're only getting Dan Arnold, the tight end, in a third for what was supposed to be your future lockdown Jalen Ramsey type man coverage type corner in a fifth. It's just not enough. But I feel like we can move on to the next segment, which is
yes. So we're going to talk about undefeated teams and then the winless teams. What is the most surprising for all these teams, and then the most expected? So let's start with the undefeated, then we'll go to winless. We'll just alternate there. So our undefeated, the first team we have for undefeated is the Broncos. The most surprising is probably this offense, in my opinion, just because they've done well. Even they haven't played the best. Like you played the Jets, the Giants, but still very impressive with Teddy Bridgewater. But the most expected is probably this defense with Von Miller coming back, and he hasn't really missed a step because I believe he's leading the NFL in total sacks or maybe total pressures. I'll look that up as you give your thoughts.
Yeah, so my most surprising has to be Teddy Bridgewater. And I'm not saying that because Teddy Bridgewater is bad. I'm saying that because Teddy Bridgewater has to go through so many systems, 3 straight years, 3 new systems. And he consistently does not turn the ball over. He has 0 interceptions this season. Many people are like, oh, well, all the teams they have played have 0 wins. The Broncos aren't turning over the ball. They aren't giving the ball to the other team. And the consistency of Teddy Bridgewater not turning over the ball, getting big gains, getting key first downs, putting the team in great field position for a field goal or a touchdown, I think is the most surprising part and definitely the most underappreciated. But my most expected part, I agree with you, the defense. Justin Simmons, Patrick Surtain, Von Miller. There's Bradley Chubb when he comes back from injury. There's just so much here that's great on defense, and defense is definitely the most expected.
Yeah, it's the total pressures. As Myles Garrett is the person leading the NFL in sacks right now. Von Miller is fourth with 4 sacks, but still. Now let's go to the Lions, who are winless. Most surprising is, I'd probably say, when I saw Jared Goff play, I was impressed. Like, it wasn't as bad as I thought he would be. That's the surprising thing for me.
Yeah, my most surprising is that the team. The most surprising part is that team looks unified. They're not good, but they don't look like they're out of it mentally. Like when I watch a Jaguars game, the Jaguars don't look like they care. It looks like the Lions care. It looks like they are trying to win, and that means a lot when you're a rebuilding team.
Yeah, that's very true. Um, so, and then most expected is probably the defensive side, and just when they face people, they really haven't done well. What do you think?
My most expected has to be their unluckiness. We've seen them face some crazy, crazy offensive outbursts from teams like the Packers, and then obviously the insanely long field goal from Justin Tucker. Yeah, ever since I've watched football, the Lions have been unlucky, and that's definitely the most expected for me.
Yeah, now let's go to the undefeated, the Panthers. Most surprising is probably Sam Darnold and how well he is doing so quickly, especially with a new playbook. Um, and then most expected is probably their defense, because there were signs of a good defense, and their defense is good, and they're just so fast. That's what I noticed against the Texans. They were just so quick to burst to the person with the ball. What do you think?
I'm going to go surprising and go defense here. I know you went expected, but I went surprising because their defense is so young. The defense is molding fast. Like you said, they're on the ball very quickly. They know their assignments, and they really uh, they understand what they're supposed to do on every play. That has to be the most surprising because sometimes we've seen young defenders get confused, pick up the wrong guy, go to the wrong zone, not understand the play call, not understand their responsibility on a given play, not understand their gap. The Panthers don't look like they have any issues, despite the fact that they have a lot of third year, second year, first year guys on their defense starting and making big plays. But most expected, I would say Matt Rule. Matt Rule, I thought was a great offensive head coach, and obviously I can put Joe Brady into this too. They're both big factors on their offense being as effective as it is, but I expected them to at least have a potent offense. That's why I had them being very close to making the playoffs initially before the season started. And yeah, that has to be my most expected is their ability to call plays, good quality plays when it matters.
Yeah, that's some excellent points. Now we go to the Giants, who are winless. The Giants, the most surprising thing to me is probably, I don't think Daniel Jones hasn't, probably the receiving core. Um, I just didn't expect, because Sterling Shepard went off against the Broncos. Um, just the depth and how well each of them are, even though Slayton did drop a ball. That's been a surprising thing. Then the most expected is probably the offensive line, in the run game, because Saquon has to do it himself, which is something, I won't take that. I won't take that one as my second surprising. But he's Saquon. It's just he has a tough offensive line. What do you think?
Yeah, my most surprising has to be their inability to win games. It seems like they have a game in the bag against a not great opponent with either an injured quarterback, their starter being out, or a Falcons team that can't buy a win, and they still can't put them away. They can't do it, and that's at this point surprising because I expected more out of a Belichick, uh, someone who's in the Belichick system for a long time. Now, expected, I'm going to have to agree with you. I expected this offensive line to get bad, and after they faced so many injuries of the offensive line, I expected their run game as a whole to be bad, their offensive line to be bad. That's why I didn't have him making the playoffs, even in a bad division.
Yeah, now we move on to the Rams, who are undefeated, as we've talked about. Surprising. I think this relates to them. Cooper Kupp is a very good wide receiver, but I was very surprised when people are calling him the best wide receiver in the NFL. Did you hear that?
I did not. He's top 5 in my opinion. He isn't
Yes, but
top
he's
1.
not
I still
number.
I still have Devontae number 1, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, Devontae or Hopkins, who's my pick? Those are two valid choices. Cooper
He's
Kupp,
up there.
he's
He's
up
making
there.
moves. He's
He's
making
making
moves.
moves, but he's not
No,
in the. That's a little too early.
I
Like
wouldn't even
he's
put him
a very
above.
good.
I wouldn't put him above Mike Evans.
Yeah, like if I'm going to choose someone other than D Hop, I'm going to say Devonte Adams.
Yeah, and right
But
after that, Stephon Diggs is up there too.
yeah, he is a very good wide receiver. But that's my surprising pick. Expected is probably defense and just Aaron Donald being Aaron Donald and just destroying the offensive lines of teams. What are your two things?
So my most surprising is their depth at wide receiver. I did not think Deshaun Jackson and Van Jefferson would be this effective as the 4th and 5th options at wide receiver behind Cooper Kupp. And I mean, I would put Tyler Higbee. I include tight ends as receivers. Tyler Higbee's always been a big part of their offense, and then obviously they still have Robert Woods. So to have those guys that far down the depth chart still making plays, I think says a lot about Sean McVay. And the most expected is Sean McVay. I expected this offense to be potent, and I'm not going to say it's surprising, but I had very high expectations, and they've exceeded it. And Sean McVay, I knew he was going to be good, so that has to be my expected for the Rams.
Now we go to the Jets. Most surprising is probably their defense being bad, like pretty bad, because Robert Saleh is the head coach and he did such a great job defensively. Even though he doesn't have the type of players, I think I just expected more from their defense. Most expected is probably the offense and the offensive line and how Zach Wilson is not playing well just because of how the offense is. Um, so, what are your two things?
My most surprising has to be uh, their inconsistencies to even be inconsistent. There's some times where their drives look really good and then just flame out as fast as they looked good. They'll make 2 big plays in a row, a great pass to Corey Davis, a big gain to Jamison Crowder, and then they get to the 30-yard line and then they have 0 offense to throw a pick, and that's the end of the drive. They can't even seem to be inconsistently. They're just inconsistently inconsistent, and that's surprising to me because I just thought they were going to be bad. But even when they're going good, they're going bad. I expected Zach Wilson to struggle without a good offensive line and with not a great array of receivers around him. Even though I do like Corey Davis and Jamison Crowder, um, I expected Zach Wilson to struggle, and without an offensive head coach too, he doesn't really have a wingman there to guide him along the way.
Yeah, now we go to the Raiders. Most surprising thing. I'm going to go with their defense. They did get a new defense coordinator. It's Gus Bradley, the former head coach of the Jaguars. And then I think he was the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks. And then he was most recently, before this, was defensive coordinator for the Chargers, I'm pretty sure. So just how well their defense was, because last year it did not look well. Most expected is probably Derek Carr, just because he has been a good QB. It's just some things have not really worked out for the Raiders. What are your things?
My most surprising has been probably their secondary. I thought Max Crosby and that D line was good already, but that their secondary looks legit. They were locking up the Steelers' great wide receiving core when they played them. They were doing the same thing against the Ravens, even though the Ravens don't have that great of a receiving core anyway. But I really am been impressed by their secondary. Now, expected, I'm gonna have to say Darren Waller. Darren Waller, I already knew was one of the best tight ends in the league. He has to be third. I can't put him above Kelsey or Kittle, but he's definitely right there at number 3. So I expected Darren Waller to be a force on the offensive side of the ball, and he really has been this whole year.
Yeah, it's very true. Wish I had him in fantasy over my tight end right now, Kyle Pitts. But let's go to the Jaguars. Most surprising, I'm probably gonna say Trevor Lawrence. Um, I'm not too worried, but I just didn't expect it to be such a big learning curve from him, given how well he excelled at Clemson. Then most expected is probably just how much of a dumpster fire it is, because you hire a college coach who's never been in the NFL, and there were some great options like Brian DeBall or Eric Bieniemy. They probably both turned it down, but I think there are other options than just Urban Meyer. I think that's more of like a PR move. Like, oh, look, we got Urban Meyer. Come see our games. Pay us money. What do you think?
My most surprising has to be the C.J. Henderson trade we just mentioned. Now you're trading, it's already not going good, and then you trade your last year star cornerback that was supposed to be the next Jalen Ramsey. Yeah, I don't know. This team's a dumpster fire. I expected a dumpster fire. I expected it to be terrible. I expected them to be the worst team in the league by far, and technically they're not the worst team in the league because there's other teams that are obviously winless, but we'll see who gets the number one pick, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're in Jacksonville.
Yeah, that I wonder. What if they did the Arizona Cardinals move, select a QB? But I doubt they do that. But it's a dumpster fire, so nothing's ahead of them. Speaking of the Cardinals, they are undefeated. Most surprising thing is probably their defense. I know you get J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, but the secondary, it's just how well they're doing. And then most expected is probably Kyler Murray and this wide receiving core. This wide receiving core is incredible with AJ Green, D Hop. They have Christian Kirk. Andy Isbell is also a good player. Um, what are your thoughts on this team?
Wow. Most surprising, I'm going to have to say their offensive line. Now they already had a good offensive line, but the way they've been able to protect Kyler Murray, I really think is the difference. Even though I do see him scrambling at times, he scrambled less, and I do think that adds to his accuracy because whenever any quarterback moves, they're less accurate. Any quarterback. And so if you can keep Kyler in the pocket, it's way easier for him to find DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, any of their array of great options. It allows for a more potent Cliff Kingsbury offense. Now, expected defense. When you add JJ Watt to an already pretty good defense, you're going to be really good, and it's really, really shown through this point in the season.
Interesting. You and I kind of alternated on defense and offense. For surprising expected. Now we go to winless, and the Colts are a surprising team. Most surprising for me is how they're so susceptible to the deep ball. Main thing to me is Tyler Lockett with the Seahawks. Their defense was incredible last year, and how they have fallen off scares me. Most expected, I'm probably going to say the QB move, and how they have had trouble with that. And Carson Wentz, it seemed like a pretty heavy risk, and it really hasn't paid off for him. So that's something I sort of expected. I didn't expect Carson Wentz to sprain both ankles, though. That was not expected, but
It's not good, but it's impressive.
but expected is probably your QB troubles. What are your thoughts?
Um, I think we flipped again. I have to say, most surprising is QB troubles because Frank Reich was with Carson Wentz when he was an MVP candidate, when he was probably going to win the MVP. And so I'm shocked of how this season's turned out. Most expected, their defense is still playing well, and when you have good linebackers in Darius Leonard, I expect him to play well. Um, but there's really very, very little that's been expected with this team, especially with the high expectations they had heading into the year.
Yeah, those are some excellent points. So now, our next part where we'll be talking about is time to hit the panic button, or like Austin's Desired QB once said, RELAX, relax. So let's start with the Steelers. I'm probably going to hit the panic button when you lose that bad to the Bengals. And Ben Roethlisberger did not look good. So I'm probably hitting the panic button. What about you?
I'm saying relax. I feel like Najee Harris will get into a groove. Until they get a run game, Ben Roethlisberger is going to look bad because they always think it's going to be a pass. It's very hard as a QB, ever. And we saw that with the Rams against Bucks. Tom Brady led the team in rushing yards. Tom Brady had 14 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. He led the team in rushing yards. You're not going to win a game when It's happened before they won the Super Bowl and Tom Brady led his team in rushing yards. But that's not supposed to happen. When they can't get a rushing game, it's hard for a team to win, especially when you're have a quality wide receiver core, because then you're just going to always drop back and you're going to be able to cover that better. But I'm relaxing. I'm saying Najee Harris will get it done. And Ben Roethlisberger, I still trust him as a QB, even though many don't. I'm hitting I'm sitting back in my lawn chair and relaxing. Mike Tomlin's also a great head coach, and I trust him with my team. If I'm the coach. I don't even touch
Given their division, that's probably leaning more to the panic button. And I'm also not a huge fan of. I don't have much belief in Ben Roethlisberger right now. Now we go to the Colts. I'm probably going to say relax because you got the Texans and the Jaguars. Texans don't have Tyrod Taylor. Titans scare me, but if you figure it out, and given oh my gosh, Frank Reich's weren't they like 1-4 when last time they had Andrew Luck, and it was Frank Reich's first season?
I think they were 1-5. Like, they were not good. They were bad.
And then they made the playoffs.
Yes.
So I'm probably going to be sitting on the edge of my lounge chair, but I'm staying relaxed, but I'm close to panic. What do you think?
I agree. I am relaxing, but not as much as I am with the Steelers. One, because they're winless, unlike the Steelers who've won a game, but also because of Carson Wentz's recent track record. I'm like you. I'm not hitting the panic button, but I've already opened the cover, if you know what I mean. There's a cover over the panic button, and mine is open, and my hand is resting on it. But I haven't pressed it yet. I haven't pressed it. Let's see how this week goes. Let's see how they perform. But they're definitely much closer to me than the Steelers to spamming the panic button.
Okay, I am slamming the panic button on this team, and that is the Chiefs. Given how Mahomes has thrown 3 interceptions in this September, and how I know one was off a no-look pass, but that hit the wide receiver.
That one should not have been.
That one's not bad. But the one that ended the game with the Chargers,
that one was terrible.
That one was bad.
That one was really bad.
And how they've been given the opportunity to win the game on a final drive. Their final drive, not the final drive of the game. And how they have both failed.
It would have been the final drive until they made it not the
yeah.
They're the reason why it wasn't the final drive.
Yeah, they fumbled, and then you throw a pick to end the game to the Chargers, and how their defense is not doing well at all. They're not, even though they add Josh Gordon, I'm still panicking because this division is really tough, and you're at the bottom of the division since 2015. It's a big road to climb, and it's panic time. What do you think?
I'm also hitting the panic button. The reason why is not the Patrick Mahomes issue. It's the defense has given up in their 3 games, 29, 36, and 30. That is terrible. That is really bad. That is historically bad. That is Dallas Cowboys last season bad. And that is bad. Now, I'm saying panic button because I hope their defense will get it together if you panic. But Andy Reid's not a defensive head coach. They don't have a really good defensive head coach on their team, even though Spagnuolo was on the team. He didn't really perform well in the playoffs last year. In the playoffs against the Bucks, they gave up 31 points. In their last 4 games, they've averaged over 30 points per game given up. The only team who hasn't scored 30 in their last 4 games is the Browns, and they scored 29. So I'm spamming the panic button, but I'll be spamming it more if they lose to the Eagles. If they lose to the Eagles this week, it is nuke time. It is, oh no. It is the siren that sounds the end of the world. And people were expecting this to be a dynasty before the Super Bowl last year. They were expecting it. This is the new Patriots. Let me tell you what. The Patriots started 1-2, but they would never have lost to the Eagles in week 4 now. The Patriots did start 1-2 twice. They did lose to the Lions, but it always felt different. And the reason why is because Bill Belichick has won multiple championships. Tom Brady's won multiple championships, and we have not seen that out of Andy Reid. We have not seen that out of Patrick Mahomes. I know everyone wants to crown Patrick Mahomes as the next GOAT, the next guy. We got to understand that he was lucky against the 49ers, that the 49ers threw away the game. They threw away the game. If Jimmy Garoppolo hits Emmanuel Sanders on that throw, they win the Super Bowl. But he missed it. And you know who's not going to miss that throw? Ever? Tom Brady. And if they run into Tom Brady again in the Super Bowl, I'm picking Tom Brady 100 times out of 100. The Chiefs let teams beat themselves. The Chiefs have not been winning many games lately. Baker's pick in the Browns game is something I can think of. The Bills' inability to score on the 1-yard line 6 times is the reason why the Bills lost that game. The Chiefs need to start beating teams and stop letting teams beat themselves, because the Chargers and Ravens let the Chiefs beat themselves. Now, we'll see what happens. I believe Andy Reid's probably the second best coach in the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes is one of, if not the best player in the NFL, but they need to turn it on. We know that September is only the month that they go 4-0 and they clinch the AFC, but there's only one team that gets a bye this year, and I don't think it's the Chiefs.
Yeah, they just need to get more urgency, and it's not a time to relax. A team that can relax, though, is Washington, because even though I like how the Cowboys are doing, they don't have that. I don't think there's anyone in the NFC East with that killer instinct, because it's the NFC East. So Washington doesn't have to worry. You can relax, because probably till the end of the season, you're going to have a chance to win the division. So that's all that really matters. You just got to get into the tournament. What do you think?
I like that. You got to get into the tournament. I like that. I agree 100%, especially because this week they play the Falcons. Now, if they lose to the Falcons, it's panic time. I'm telling you right now. If they pull a Giants and somehow lose to the Falcons, it's panic time. But I trust this team against the Falcons. That was a hard game last week against a good team. And so I honestly think, I agree with you, it's time to relax. They got destroyed by the Bills. A lot of teams are going to get destroyed by the Bills this year. It doesn't mean that they can't win this week division. I honestly only think there's 2 teams contending for it. There's Washington and there's the Cowboys. And whichever team does worse, not does better, does worse, will lose the division. So I think same sentiment as you. They're not in a great division. Relax. You have Ron Rivera, a coach who's been there, done that. Relax.
Yeah, I'm believing the Cowboys can pull it out, but I need to see the success that we've seen the first 3 weeks, or the success on the defensive side for the first 3 weeks. But now we go to the Seahawks. I'm hitting the panic button, because they are not in a bad division. They are in the best division in football. Or second. You can make an argument for second.
No, they're in the best division, because they have 2 3-0 teams and a 2-1.
Yeah.
Rams 3-0, Cardinals 3-0. 49ers were a field goal miss from the Packers away from being 3-0. They're the you can continue, but they're in the best.
I was thinking of the AFC North, like you can make an argument, but
Cincinnati isn't any of those teams.
But Seahawks, their defense is not doing well. We've seen Russ start really hot at the beginning of the season, and then he dies off. So that is why I say panic. What do you say?
I 100% agree. This one's the most panic out of all of them. including the Colts, most panic. Reason why? The Colts are playing in one of the worst divisions in the NFL. If the Colts wanted to turn it on and wanted to be really, really, really good, they could. The Seattle could turn it on and still lose to the Rams and Cardinals and 49ers in back-to-back weeks. Seattle does not have time to relax. They have no time to relax. No time. If Pete Carroll and this entire offense continues to play well, but their defense gives up 36 points per game or whatever crazy number it is, they are going to be a lottery team. And I say lottery like it's the NBA. Obviously, there isn't a lottery in football, but they're going to be a team that's watching the playoffs at home and not in their own, not in their stadium playing a game, but at home watching a game being played between somebody else in their division. I don't understand how a defense that was so formidable just 7 years ago, the best defense in football, 7 years ago, when the Seahawks and Patriots played, technically, no, that was the 2014 season. The game took place in 2015. But yeah, that was 2014 when they played against the Patriots, and they had the best defense in football. It seems so long ago and so short. And that just shows you how great Tom Brady is. The Seahawks defense has gone from the best to the worst, while Tom Brady is still winning Super Bowls. So we'll always bring up Tom Brady somehow, some way in a football talk. But this team definitely has the most panic, in my opinion. And I think I would fire Pete Carroll if they don't make the playoffs.
Wow. I would probably say the most panic is the Chiefs, just given the expectations. Yeah, you started on me when you said that was 7 years ago, because you are correct. It just doesn't feel like 7 years ago. But man, I would not fire Pete Carroll.
If they missed the playoffs, you wouldn't fire Pete Carroll?
No, I wouldn't.
Why?
Not yet.
When was the last time they
It
made it to
seems
an
a little
NFC
too
Championship
early.
game?
Well, it's been a while, but
It's been 7 years. They've not made it back to the NFC Championship in 7 years. People
I would
the
probably
Packers have
wait.
lost back-to-back NFC Championships. They're so bad. But people still want to talk about like Pete Carroll's still in the mojo. They haven't made an NFC Championship game in 7 years.
I'd still wait. Maybe he's on the hot seat, but I'm not firing him. Not yet.
Even after
give him-
everything that happened this offseason with Russell Wilson wanting to be traded, the rumors, I know it didn't happen, but apparently he's disgruntled because the team is bad. Their defense is bad. DK Metcalf isn't the same right now. Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson are carrying this team on their backs. Their O-line is bad. Chris Carson's playing well. I'll give you that. Their running back's pretty good.
I just give it one more season with Pete Carroll.
I don't see how you can after they lost in the first. They didn't win a playoff game last year.
That's true.
In the year before that, did they win a playoff game? I don't think they won a playoff.
think so.
No, they did. They beat the Eagles. They beat the Eagles with Josh
Wait.
McCown.
Last year?
No, last year they lost to the Rams. I'm talking about the year before that.
Oh, okay,
They lost. They beat the Eagles with Josh McCown, and then they lost to the Packers. I just don't trust it, man. I would fire Pete Carroll if they don't make the playoffs.
Interesting choice.
Especially with 7 now making the playoffs. You have no excuse. Every team in their division's the best division. Every team in that division could make the playoffs technically. Every team. Because now there's 3 wildcard spots. No excuse. None.
I don't know. I'd probably wait, but you and I also disagree. I would fire Joe Judge. You wouldn't fire Joe Judge. So let us know what you think in the comments about our panic or relax, or if there's another team that we did not include that you think should be in panic mode. Let us know in the comments. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.